Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Emma Johnson, 38, CEO of a thriving technology company, had always wielded power with elegance and efficiency. Her name resonated throughout the business world as a symbol of success, intelligence, and resilience. Every morning, she walked through the lobby of her company like a queen in her kingdom, knowing that her talent had shaped who she had become. That day, after a crucial meeting with international investors, Emma decided to go to her bank to finalize an important loan application to develop an innovative new project. She had always been a loyal customer, known and respected by the staff, and believed that nothing could stand in her way. Yet, no sooner had she presented her card and asked to be seen by the agency's director, Robert Collins, than something unexpected happened. The man's condescending look and hesitant words betrayed an inexplicable doubt. I'm not sure you're who you say you are," he murmured, his words cutting through the air like a knife. Emma felt her heart pound, but not out of fear. Sometimes life threw challenges where you least expected them. She knew that this moment, humiliating and absurd, would not go unchallenged. In the tense silence, she took a deep breath and prepared to transform this injustice into a demonstration of strength, dignity, and truth. Emma Johnson entered the bank lobby as usual, striding confidently across the shiny tiles. The lights reflected off her understated jewelry and perfectly tailored suit. She politely greeted the receptionist, a young employee who recognized her from years ago, and asked to speak to the branch manager. A few moments later, Robert Collins appeared. He was a well-dressed man in his 50s, with a smile that was intended to be professional but didn't mask his arrogance. Emma presented her bank card and explained that she was there to finalize a loan application for her business. But instead of a usual greeting, Robert narrowed his eyes and stepped back slightly. "Ms. Johnson," he said hesitantly, I'm not sure you're the CEO of this company." Emma blinked in shock. "Excuse me?" she asked calmly, but her voice held a hint of cold determination. Robert continued, visibly uncomfortable, but filled with palpable condescension, "I mean, your name appears on our files, but I need to verify some information before I can serve you." The customers in the room, who had begun to observe the scene, exchanged surprised glances. One of them whispered, "That's CEO Johnson, how dare he?" Emma took a deep breath, remaining calm. She knew an impulsive reaction would only make the situation worse. Smoothly pulling out her phone, she made as if to make a call, but her gaze fixed on the manager, implacable. "Mr. Collins, you have just made a serious mistake," she said, her voice echoing in the lobby. "I will contact head office immediately. This kind of behavior is unacceptable." At that moment, the young receptionist, a silent witness to the scene, felt a growing unease. Other customers were discreetly taking photos and videos. Robert, sensing that the situation was getting out of hand, stammered an apology, but the damage was done. Emma, with her majestic posture and intact dignity, had already transformed this humiliation into a moment of power. A few minutes later, head office confirmed its position, Robert Collins would be suspended and an immediate investigation would be launched. The story had barely begun, but Emma knew she had already made a difference. Just hours after the incident, the bank's head office received all the evidence, surveillance videos, customer testimonies, and the audio recording of the conversation between Emma Johnson and Robert Collins. Management didn't hesitate for a second. Robert was summoned to the headquarters office. Sitting in front of the board of directors, he tried to justify his actions, stammering that it was just a check. But his excuses sounded hollow and insincere. The executives exchanged worried glances. This type of discrimination, especially against a high-profile client, could cost the bank dearly. A few minutes later, the verdict came in, Robert Collins was fired on the spot. The committee clarified that his behavior was unacceptable and that no customer, regardless of status or skin color, should be treated with contempt or unjustified suspicion. The news spread quickly. Agency employees and clients present were stunned. Videos of the incident were already circulating on social media, accompanied by outraged comments. Headlines like, "A CEO rejected from her own bank" or "Live humiliation, the director fired," were beginning to appear. Emma, for her part, maintained a professional attitude. She posted a short statement on her social media, not to complain, but to denounce systemic discrimination and emphasize the importance of respect in all departments, whether financial or otherwise. Her message was quickly shared by thousands of people, making her a symbol of dignity and courage in the face of injustice. The incident sent shockwaves through the banking world. The bank, under media and public pressure, held a press conference to publicly apologize and announce the introduction of new anti-discrimination training for its staff. That day, Emma didn't just stand up for her rights, she showed that an injustice, however small or absurd, could become a lever for change. And behind this simple gesture, a clear lesson emerged: dignity and courage always triumph over arrogance and discrimination. The day after the incident, the video showing Emma Johnson confronting Robert Collins had already made the rounds on social media. Internet users were stunned. How could a bank manager refuse service to the CEO of one of the most influential companies in the country? Mainstream media were quick to pick up the story. News channels broadcast the footage, and newspapers published detailed articles about Emma's humiliation and the bank's immediate response. The headlines were unequivocal: Black CEO humiliated in her own bank, director fired, instant justice, Robert Collins loses his job, Emma Johnson shows the way to dignity. In the city, the bank's regular customers were still discussing the incident. Some had witnessed it firsthand and felt ashamed for not intervening sooner. Others praised Emma for her calm and professionalism. Social media amplified the outrage, and a spontaneous movement emerged to denounce discrimination in financial services. Emma, for her part, saw her phone explode with messages of support. Entrepreneurs, executives, and even politicians congratulated her on her strength and dignity. Yet she remained focused. Her goal wasn't sudden fame, but to turn this experience into a powerful message against racism and discrimination. The bank, for its part, was feeling pressure like never before. Customers were threatening to transfer their accounts elsewhere, and the institutional image was seriously tarnished. An emergency meeting was called to re-evaluate all procedures and implement awareness programs. The regional director and head office managers quickly realized that this was not just an individual error, the case highlighted a systemic problem. Through this incident, Emma became more than a CEO, she became a symbol. A symbol of dignity, resilience, and justice in a world where discrimination could still manifest itself where it was least expected. 2 days after the incident, the bank held a special press conference in the main lobby of its headquarters. Journalists from all the national networks were present, as well as bloggers and financial influencers. The tension in the room was palpable. The bank's CEO, visibly nervous, spoke up. "We wish to offer our sincere apologies to Mrs. Emma Johnson and all our customers for the incident that occurred in one of our branches. Robert Collins's behavior was unacceptable and contrary to our values." At that moment, the cameras captured Emma's face in the room, calm, dignified, but determined. She didn't need to speak, her posture and gaze were enough to command respect. The CEO continued, "We have terminated Robert Collins immediately. In addition, we will institute a mandatory training program for all our employees to prevent any form of discrimination in the future. We are committed to ensuring that every customer is treated with respect and fairness." The reporters asked questions, some of them sharp, but Emma listened attentively. Then, when a microphone was handed to her, she spoke with impressive clarity and confidence. "What happened is not just an individual matter. It is a reminder that we must remain vigilant and defend the dignity of everyone, regardless of their status or skin color. We must turn every injustice into a lever for change." Applause erupted from the room, and the media immediately echoed her powerful words. On social media, the hashtags #JusticeForEmma and #RespectInTheBanks went viral. Comments highlighted her calm, dignity, and ability to turn personal humiliation into a public lesson. The bank, under pressure and aware of the media impact, also announced that it would offer Emma symbolic compensation for the incident and would strengthen its internal controls. Concrete measures included anti-discrimination training, the creation of a customer monitoring committee, and a strict protocol for managing conflicts in branches. That day, Emma Johnson didn't just stand up for her rights, she set a new standard of respect and accountability in the banking industry. And as the cameras continued to roll, she knew that a single action, carried out with dignity and courage, could bring about real change. In the days that followed, the Emma Johnson incident continued to resonate across the country. The media reported on it not only as a case of discrimination, but also as an example of courage and leadership. At the bank, the new management conducted a complete overhaul of internal practices. Employees received intensive training on respecting customers and combating unconscious bias. Regular seminars were held, and a monitoring system was put in place to ensure that every complaint or concern was handled professionally and impartially. Customers, for their part, regained confidence in the institution. Some testified publicly, "Seeing how the bank reacted after this incident reassures us. We now know that no customer will ever be discriminated against." Others shared their own experiences on social media, creating a national conversation about the importance of dignity and equality in all services. For Emma, the case also had a positive impact on her career and public image. She was invited to conferences, podcasts, and television shows to talk about leadership, courage, and resilience in the face of injustice. Her message now extended beyond business to social justice and individual responsibility. Despite the recognition and media attention, Emma remained true to herself, humble, determined, and focused on her goals. She used the experience as a lever to inspire other leaders and businesses to implement fair and equitable practices. Thus, a simple, humiliating, and unfair refusal of service had triggered significant change. Emma Johnson had shown that courage, dignity, and perseverance can transform a negative situation into an opportunity for progress, and that every action counts when it comes to defending one's rights and those of others. Within weeks of the incident, Emma Johnson's story had spread beyond her city limits. Business leaders, CEOs, and public figures were taking a keen interest in the case. Boardrooms were now discussing how to prevent discrimination and ensure fair treatment for all customers. Emma was invited to several international conferences. In each talk, she calmly recounted the incident, without resentment, but with a clarity that struck her audience. "Dignity is not negotiable," she said. "A single error of judgment can cost dearly, not just to an individual, but to an entire institution." Other CEOs and business leaders began taking concrete steps within their own companies. Awareness programs were implemented, anti-discrimination protocols were strengthened, and internal policies were re-evaluated to ensure every employee knew how to act fairly and respectfully. The media continued to follow Emma and her initiatives. She became a national symbol of courage and responsible leadership. Inspiring stories multiplied, customers shared how their complaints were now being taken seriously, employees testified that the training had opened their eyes to their unconscious biases. For Emma, every message, every show of support, every company that stepped up for change was a victory. But she remained focused on her main goal, to show that dignity and respect are not just personal values, but standards that all institutions should uphold. Thus, what began as a humiliating incident in a bank branch became a silent but powerful movement. Emma Johnson, through her calm, determination, and courage, had succeeded in transforming an injustice into an example for thousands of people across the country. The incident at the bank and the way Emma Johnson handled it had a snowball effect on her career. Investors and partners, impressed by her dignity and composure, approached her with greater confidence and respect. Her projects, once in the planning stages, were accelerated, and new opportunities opened up around the world. Invitations poured in for board meetings, international collaborations, and conferences on women's leadership and corporate social responsibility. The media dubbed her the CEO who didn't bend in the face of injustice. Even in the most conservative financial circles, her name became synonymous with integrity and moral strength. Yet Emma remained true to herself. She rejected purely media opportunities that didn't contribute to her real goals. She knew that her true influence came from her ability to transform personal experiences into universal lessons, not from fleeting fame. The impact was also tangible within her company. Inspired by their leader's example, employees felt more motivated, proud, and respectful of one another. A new culture of transparency and respect developed, strengthening both the company's productivity and reputation. But Emma knew that with visibility also came responsibility. Every decision, every public gesture, would now be scrutinized. She had to continue to act with prudence and exemplarity, because she was no longer just a business leader, she had become a national symbol, a model of resilience and justice in a world where injustice could arise even in the most respected institutions. Thus, from this initial humiliation emerged an even more brilliant career, sustained by respect, integrity and courage, proving that personal dignity can transform obstacles into lasting opportunities. The Emma Johnson case continued to captivate public attention. On social media, discussions extended well beyond the bank. Internet users shared their own experiences of discrimination and discussed how they hoped the incident would serve as a lesson to all institutions. The hashtags #RespectForAll and #JusticeEmma circulated widely, and many organizations began publishing guides to better manage diversity and the treatment of customers. Bank customers also spoke out. Some publicly testified, "I never thought my bank would act like this, but seeing Emma's reaction gave me back my confidence." Others recounted how the incident had prompted them to demand greater respect and transparency in their interactions with financial services. Business schools and universities invited Emma to share her experience with students. She explained how a moment of tension and injustice could become a lever for change if one knew how to act with calm and dignity. "Strength isn't always in confrontation," she said. "Sometimes it lies in self-control and the ability to transform a negative situation into a positive example." Even in political circles, the case caused a stir. Elected officials proposed new laws to protect consumers from discrimination in financial services, using Emma's example as a benchmark to justify the need for stricter rules. Across the country, her story became a symbol, that of a woman who refused to be humiliated, who commanded respect and who transformed a personal injustice into an opportunity for progress for society. Emma, aware of the magnitude of the impact, knew that her role now extended beyond her company. She had become a model of courage and dignity for all those who, every day, might face injustice or contempt. And that was exactly what this experience had revealed: a single person, guided by their values and inner strength, could bring about real change. 6 months after the incident, the impact on the bank and society at large was profound. Internal procedures had been completely overhauled. Every employee, from the teller to the regional manager, now received mandatory training on respect, diversity, and anti-discrimination. Customers noticed the difference and reported more attentive and equitable service. The bank's reputation, far from being damaged in the long term, had been strengthened. The media highlighted the contrast between the initial error and the institution's exemplary response, showing how a negative incident could be transformed into an opportunity for improvement. Emma, for her part, continued to be sought after to share her experience. She gave lectures, wrote articles, and participated in panels on leadership, ethics, and equality. Her example inspired not only business leaders, but also young professionals and students, who saw in her a model of courage and dignity in the face of injustice. Testimonies continued to pour in. Customers recounted how they had been treated differently after the scandal broke, and how it had changed their perception of the bank. Other companies used this example to review their own practices and implement stricter anti-discrimination policies. Emma understood that this experience had left a lasting legacy. She had transformed a personal affront into a lever for collective progress. What she had accomplished went far beyond her career or the bank. She had demonstrated that dignity and courage could bring about concrete, tangible changes in society. And as she continued her projects and missions, Emma knew that this episode would remain a benchmark, a story to tell, to show that even in the most humiliating situations, it was possible to take control and change the rules of the game. Emma Johnson's story reached its peak when the entire country realized the significance of her actions. What had begun as a humiliating incident in a bank branch had grown into a genuine awareness-raising movement. The media continued to report on her example, but it wasn't the celebrity that interested Emma, it was the real change she had brought about. The bank, now a model of respect and inclusion, received praise from customers, corporate partners, and even public institutions. Anti-discrimination protocols were adopted in other banks and companies, inspired by his courage and determination. Emma, while pursuing her ambitious professional projects, remained a figure of integrity and moral strength. Wherever she spoke, she recalled this simple but powerful lesson: dignity and courage can never be bought, intimidated, or ignored. In lectures, she often said, "Never let arrogance or prejudice define your worth. Even in the face of the most blatant injustice, remain calm, confront it intelligently, and turn it into an opportunity for change." For those who witnessed the incident, or who followed the story through the media and social media, Emma Johnson became a symbol, a model of resistance against discrimination, an example of enlightened leadership, and an inspiration to all who believe in justice and human dignity. And as word of her courage spread, a simple but universal truth became clear: sometimes it only takes one person, standing tall, calm, and determined, to transform an injustice into a message that changes the world.